apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to.
That's Trump running mate JD Vance flipping the script on ABC host and woman who acts like she's perpetually seeing ghosts, Martha Raddatz, over the dangerous reality of Harris's open border policy. Welcome to Nerk News, I'm Nerkish. And JD Vance has really been giving the doubters something to think about lately by going on establishment media shows and proving why Trump picked him as VP.
I understand what you're saying, that some people left behind, but he's making these statements that the mayor is flat out disputing.
Well, Martha, you just said the mayor said they were exaggerated.
Grossly exaggerated.
That means there's got to be some element of truth here. And of course, President Trump was actually in Aurora, Colorado, talking to people on the ground. And what we're hearing, of course, Martha, is that people are terrified by what has happened with some of these Venezuelan gangs.
Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened. Martha. I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to.
Now, in case you're unaware, what they're referring to is that in 2022, over 42,000 migrants have poured into the sanctuary city of Denver, Colorado, and among them were members of a Venezuelan gang who made their way to the neighboring town of Aurora and taken over apartment buildings. Here's the mayor briefly talking about it.
These gangs apparently are attracted to where there's a concentration of Venezuelan migrants. And so they've in fact have kind of pushed out the property management through intimidation and then collected the rents. And arrests have been made, but these operations are still ongoing.
Now, for context, this is the $2.1 million home Martha Raddatz recently purchased in Arlington, Virginia, which gives you a little bit of an idea why she's playing this down, because she absolutely doesn't care about people who live in apartment complexes. All she likely cares about is doing the bidding of her Democrat overlords, which JD Vance knows and absolutely calls her out on.
And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again. And unfortunately, when you let people in by the millions, most of whom are unvetted, most of whom you don't know who they really are, you're going to have problems like this. Kamala Harris, 94 executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad that he did.
Okay, let's just end that with they did not invade or take over the city, as Donald Trump said. I want to move on to
just a few apartment complexes, no big deal.
A few apartment complexes that the mayor did not seem was invading the entire city. Let's move on to women and abortion.
Yes, that's right. Let's move on to a hot topic she can straw man and ask loaded questions about for a soundbite. The fact of the matter here is that pretend journalists like this don't know the first thing about what regular Americans experience anymore. It's why they say it's your fault if you think inflation is high. It's why they tell you to do things like skip breakfast if you're complaining about high grocery bills, and it's why people like Martha Raddatz and Jen Psaki downplay and even mock people concerned about Harris's open borders, because the only migrants they see in their wealthy DC suburbs are the illegals they exploit for cheap labor, which apparently seems to be the only thing they actually care about. But let me know what you think. Is it a big deal that a few apartment complexes were taken over by a violent gang? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye.